Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Mentor Project's Optimizing Your Success. I am your host, Dr. Ruth Gotian, and I have my fabulous panel today. And of course, I have also a great guest. While I am telling you all about our amazing panel and guests, if you are watching live, could you just put in the chat where you are watching us from? We always like to see how global our audience is. So welcome today to our show, Dr. Bruce Y. Lee, who is a writer, a journalist, a professor, a systems modeler, computational and digital health expert, and avocado lover. And we have Susie Katz, our award-winning photographer and founder of Photo Wings, which helps people think creatively through photography. And we're so excited to have Dr. Susan Byrne-Stone back with us. She is a clinical social worker, a systems therapist, international coach, professor, TV talk show producer and host, mental health consultant for the media, and a real connector. And hopefully in a moment, we will have Devin Harris join us as well. He is our three-time Olympian and original member of the Jamaican bobsledding team. Dr. Ruth Gotian, I study extreme high achievers. And one of the people who I got to chat with, and I'll tell you about that story in a moment, is Tal Erel, who is the catcher for Israel's national baseball team and was in the Olympics in Tokyo this summer. And it was quite a journey. Now, before we get to his journey, hey, Tal, how are you?
Hi, how's it going?
It is great. Should we tell everyone how we met, Tal?
You should.
It's a good story. So, in the airport at Kennedy Airport, I was catching a flight. Now, I don't know if you have been catching international flights this summer, but before you board, at least the flight I was on, they make you take your temperature. But nobody tells you that you have to take your temperature. Just as you get to the gate, they send you to some other place to get your temperature and come back. So here I am, just all verklempt, trying to, get on this line with this mound of people who are around me. And as I get to the gate, all of a sudden they say, you need to sign off on some other form. And I didn't quite understand what form it was. And Tal, I don't know if you remember, but you actually told me where I could find this form. So now I'm totally frazzled. But I realized here's this guy with this other gentleman, and they're wearing these tracksuits with the Olympic emblem. And I kept thinking, oh, I wonder where they sell that. Well, all of a sudden, we start boarding the plane. And then I'm looking and I said, oh, I don't think he bought that. He might be one of the athletes in the Olympics. So I really just got my chutzpah up. And after we got settled in our seats, I walked up to him and I said, were you in the Olympics? Do you remember this conversation, Tal?
I do. I do.
I'm curious what your version of the story is. So I said to him, are you in the Olympics? And you said, yes. And I said, so what did you do? And you said, what'd you tell him? What'd you tell me?
I played on the Israel national team, I guess, for the baseball.
That's right. And what position?
Catcher.
That's right. So I said, I need to talk to you. I told him who I was. I study extreme high achievers. I write for Forbes. I said, we have a long flight. Could we chat? And Tal said, yes. But then Tal went to sleep. Because you were exhausted because you were flying from Tokyo. So you must have been traveling for over 20 hours at that point. And we still had a long flight to go. So he was asleep. And I said, I'm going to lose my chance to talk to this Olympian. So I actually left him a note. And I said, I'm the one you met. I really want to talk to you about your Olympic journey. If you're interested, I'm sitting here. And I guess several hours later, you must have seen the note and you came to my seat and I said, welcome to my office. And there on the flight, we had our interview and it was really cool, I thought.
For sure.
Well, do you remember that conversation? You must have thought I was a crazy woman.
No, I do. And I actually still have that note with me somewhere.
Do you really?
But I ran into it the other day and I was like, oh.
You kept it?
So I have to say it's one of the most not bizarre because it's one of the most unique interviews I've had.
It was probably highest up in the air, right?
Definitely.
So here he was sleep deprived, and traveling forever after a really exciting 2 weeks. And I was really excited to hear about his Olympic journey. How does one get to the Olympics? But also, how does one get on a team from a country who has never had a team in this sport before? How do you get to play with them? So, Tal, take us back. Take us back all the way to teach us, how is it that you got to love baseball? Where did it start for you?
Okay, so I'm currently 25 years old. I live in the States now, and I go to school here. But my journey with baseball starts when I was 6 years old. My family relocated to Miami, Florida, through my father's work in Bank Leumi. And as a little kid growing up here, pretty much everyone's plays baseball in the States. So I had all my classmates. I had my father's coworkers taking me to baseball games. So that's how I kind of started playing the sport. And when I was 10 years old, it was time for my family to move back to Israel, because that's when our time was due. But I remember I was telling my father at the age of 10, and with all the chutzpah, saying, okay, you guys can head back to Israel. I'll stay because there's really no baseball in Israel. So that's kind of when he kind of was searching for me where I could play, if there's a league, if there's really anything going on baseball related. And that's how he found the Israel Association of Baseball. I've been a member of that since I've been 10 years old. My first interaction is we flew after the school. I was in fourth grade. We flew back to Israel during the summertime, and they had the summer camp that they have every year annually. And I remember I was there. It was in Gezer, and then another week it was in a different field. But one thing I've noticed is the differences in equipment and field and baseball knowledge. That kind of really shook me as a little 10-year-old. But that's how I've kind of started my way with Israel baseball. The same year I've already been on the junior national team. We flew to Czech Republic. And ever since then, and all the way now until I'm 25 years old, I've been part of the member and enjoying the growth in baseball in Israel, and seeing how the national team has been developing. And it's just been an honor and a pleasure to be part of.
Wow. So did your father found the Israel national team, or it was there already?
No, it was there already. So there's currently about 800 baseball players playing in all age groups from 6 years old all the way
Wow.
to 60. So now I was there. That was around the same amount of players back then. But he actually Googled baseball in Israel, and that's how he found the Israel Association of Baseball. But since he used to take me to practices when I was here, and especially in Israel when it's farther drives, then you need your parents to take you. He used to stick around, and he was coaching the first couple of years when I was younger. So
Wow.
that's how he kind of got involved with baseball in Israel himself. And as a banker, that's how he became the treasurer currently for the Israel Association of Baseball. So that's kind of how both of our paths got connected with Israel baseball. And it's truly been an honor and a pleasure. And to see the growth for the past couple of years has just been tremendous.
Wow. Wow. So from Little League to this team in Israel, but still getting from there, I know thousands of people who have played Little League and junior varsity even, but to get from there to the Olympics, I think we've skipped a few steps. What did it take to get there from playing where your father has to drive you because you're not even old enough to drive
Yeah.
to making it to the Olympics? Tell us about those years in between.
So growing up in Israel, which is kind of different than that I've noticed growing up playing baseball here, is you grow up, and the players that are good enough to play on the national team, that's what you hold on to as a kid. You know that you have your tournament in the summer to play in European Championship or some different tournament they found. So for me growing up, that was really my highlight of the year and what I would train for. And every year it'd just be changing off. We would fly to Italy, we would fly to Czech Republic. We flew a couple of times to the States. In comparison, here, kids grow up and they have baseball at school. They have after school places to play. They have varsity teams. They have travel ball. And that's just not the case in Israel. So there's no teams in high schools or anything. So you're pretty much on your own and you're with your club you grew up to. So when I was about 14 or 15, I personally knew that I wanted to, after I'm done with the military, to go play college baseball. So that was kind of my farther goal path, as well as the annual tournaments that we would fly to. When I was about 16, 17 years old, I was first I went to my first interaction in the military. It's where they see how you are mentally, how you are. They check your intelligence, they see your health, the tzav rishon, as we call it. And I had a personal conversation with one of the officers there, and she asked, "What do you want to do?" So I told her I want to play baseball, which is not really, a common.
She probably didn't know what that was.
I've came to a conclusion that Israelis don't really know what it was, so I had to kind of explain. But especially in the military, playing a sport is very rare and not common. So you have this 16-year-old, 17-year-old going into an office of this commander, and you're telling her that, you want to play baseball and not be intelligence force or frontline fighting. So she was kind of asking, what happens if I don't play baseball? So I kind of told her that I will. Like, it doesn't matter what you're going to tell me. I will play baseball in the military. I will be able to, pursue my dreams, go play college baseball, and enjoy what I've been enjoying my whole life. So she was like, okay, how far are you willing to go in order to play baseball? I was like, I'll do whatever it takes. If I need to be in the military jail a couple of days until I get that exemption, then if I need to do that, that's what I'm going to do. So I was fortunate enough to be able to be considered an elite athlete in the military, which is a special program. There's about 450 soldiers in their various sports. Some are models, some play chess. It's a very diverse program in order to help people continue with their careers. Throughout that time, I went to play in Czech Republic. I went to play in the Netherlands. But after that, I moved to the States, and that's kind of where the national team competing for the Olympics started. So we started in 2019, the senior national team. We've always been in the B pool of Europe, which is pretty much the second division. We've never been in the A pool, which is the top 12 or top 16, depends on the year. But we had this opportunity. The general manager, Peter Kerr, told us and spoke to us as the national team, like, listen, the Olympics is coming in Japan. The last time it was in Beijing in 2008. The next one is probably going to be in Los Angeles in 2028. This is a once in 20 years Olympics that, we have a chance of qualifying, and the World Baseball Confederation is giving everyone the opportunity. And he said, he already made shirts, Road to Tokyo. And, we kind of thought that, he's kind of dreaming, because we've actually never even qualified for the A pool to be in Europe. And now he's talking about finishing first place in Europe and in Africa, which was kind of, mind blowing just to think of. So we were in the summer of 2019, we went back to the B pool, which we failed to qualify from probably 4 or 5 different times this past 20 years we've been part of. It was in Bulgaria. It was in July 2019. And some games were easier than others, but we ended up winning 6-0. We beat Russia in the finals. And we've actually qualified for the first time just for the B pool playoffs, which was the other pool of B pool. It was held in a different country. So 2 weeks later, we had to fly to Lithuania to play against them in a 3-game series in order to just qualify for the A pool, to give us another opportunity in order to advance. We flew to Lithuania. We beat them in the first 2 games. That means we already qualified. And now we're in the first time in the A pool. So me personally, as a kid, growing up in the Israel Association of Baseball, it was, it was amazing seeing all the times that we failed to qualify for the A pool, but now we've actually made it to the A pool. But on top of that, we have a goal of reaching to Olympics. So in order to get to the Olympics and win that European Africa ticket, you need to get from the A pool to the Olympic qualifiers. In order to do that, you need to finish in the top 5 in the A pool tournament, which was a month later after Lithuania.
Wow.
It was in Germany. So we were there. We were in Germany. We played pretty well, honestly. We got a couple good recruitments that joined us and want to be part of the team. We finished 4th in the European Championship in the A pool, and we knew we made it to the Olympic qualifiers, which was, of course, we want to qualify for Olympics, but for us, it was a more or less satisfying achievement for us making this.
So, Tal, let me ask you, what do you think changed that your team for years and years and years was always in the B pool, and now you were in the A pool? Your team made it to the A pool. What do you think was that change that caused that to happen?
First of all, without a doubt, we had better players participating. So we had a lot of American professionals that have the Jewish heritage. They wanted to be part of the Israel national team. And it takes us back to a couple of years before when we participated in the World Baseball Classic in 2017 and even before in 2012. And for that, you don't even need to be a citizen in order to play. You just need to be eligible for citizenship. So that means that pretty much back then, everyone that was Jewish was able to participate. So we had a lot of top professionals, a lot of Major League Baseball players that are Jewish that played on the team. But after that tournament, they really wanted to continue playing on the Israel national team. So through that time span, that 4 years since until now, 2 years, they made Aliyah. They got their Israeli citizenship, which was a personal achievement for them. And they were playing, again, another tournament for Israel, but representing who they are. So we definitely were a better team. But on top of that, we usually used to go with the mentality of, okay, maybe we'll be able to sneak a win in here, or maybe we'll be able to qualify. But this time we knew we had a really good team and we have a chance. And usually you really play against your opponent rather than playing your own game and you dictating the game. So that's kind of the change we did. We actually were able to determine how we are going to play with our strength rather than playing the opposing team's weakness. So we were really looking forward. We were really confident in our team. We eventually finished 4th in Europe and got it to the Olympic qualifiers, which we eventually finished 1st and got us that Olympic ticket. So this whole crazy summer was about 4 tournaments. And the whole time we had to fly players from the States to Europe every 2 weeks. So that was a lot for them too. And a lot of them have jobs regardless of baseball. Some are in construction, some are in banking. So every time they had to tell, their bosses, like, listen, there's another opportunity came up. I really need to go. I'm sorry. So everything was working out for us. And it actually felt we were pretty much, no one can beat us at that point.
Go ahead, Susan.
I have a follow-up question to Ruth's question. There's so much in your story that I'm so impressed with. But in terms of also what made the difference, a couple of things that I heard was that, when you were, when they asked you what you wanted to do and you said, I'll do anything to play baseball, put me in the cell. It doesn't matter. Your determination was incredible. And then you talked about your coach. I think it was the coach who bought t-shirts or had things made with that you were going to win. And he, he knew, he saw it. He had the vision. How much do you think that also played into your success? It almost sounded like there was no way you guys weren't going to make it, because so many people, including you, had that vision that this is what's going to happen. How much of that do you think was important in terms of your success and the team's success?
I think it's 100% correlated to one another. That and a lot of it comes from that internal drive that you were saying. And going back to the stories when I was a little kid, going to these fields and these long drives and terrible equipment. Sometimes we had practices with 5 or 6 baseball throughout the whole season. So I think that's kind of where everything collects together, and pretty much, this is your time to shine right now. It's not given, it's earned, and this is where we knew this is our opportunity. And at the start of the game starts at 0-0. It's not if teams are better or if they come from the Netherlands, which is a big baseball country. They don't start with 2-0 lead at the first inning. So I think that's kind of where we all brought together just the struggles and left it off the field. And we gave us our heart and left that on the field.
Wow. They say luck is when chance and opportunity meet. So
For
it
sure.
wasn't luck that you had. It was chance plus opportunity plus a hell of a lot of hard work and determination, for sure.
And Ruth, like you always talk about with the people that you've worked with and interviewed, it's like no is not an option, right?
That's right.
Not an
no
option.
means not yet.
Right.
That's right. You listen. All right, Tal, what happened after that?
So once we qualified, it was kind of like an unreal moment of like, okay, what actually did just happen? Did we just accomplish these things? And it was pretty incredible. Everyone's phone was buzzing and calling. We had interviews being called from all over the world. The Japanese television sent a crew to Israel to see what was going on with Israel baseball. How did this, this happen all of a sudden? And, we kind of had to adjust our reality that, we're now Olympians and we need to act accordingly with interviews and how we, pretty much the whole package of what it takes. And it was really, it was changing. It was a changing moment for everyone. And, but the moment we qualified, I remember I was looking in the eyes of the GM back then when he gave us the same one that gave us the shirts. And, he was crying in joy and, and he was telling me like, wow, do you believe what we've been through all these years? It's not just this past tournament. So it's pretty much our whole lives of all the struggles coming one together. It's not just these past couple tournaments. So it was really emotional for everyone. Everyone, was off the moon and pretty much enjoying the moment as much as possible.
Now, for you, Tal, that almost didn't happen because you had a almost career-ending injury a few
Correct.
years prior. Are you comfortable talking about that?
Yeah, no problem. I actually spoke about it the other day. So I was still in the military. It was my last year, my third year. Right before I was moving to the States, I went to play in the Netherlands. The coach there was the Israel national team assistant coach back then. And he called me one day and he said, like, listen, Tal, one of my catchers got hurt. Would you mind, I know you're in the military and you could get some time off. Would you mind coming to play in the Netherlands? And the Netherlands is known to be the best league in Europe. It's a pretty high professional league. And I was like, you know what? This is a great opportunity to test myself, in the international phase and personally, not only playing at the national team, but see how I perform playing the professional level. So I flew there. I was working out with the team for around 2 weeks. And then the first game I was there, I was actually a pinch runner in the 9th inning. So that means they just put me pretty much in the last inning just to see that everything's going well and there's no issues. The following day, kind of the secretary of the team, I don't really remember or know what his title was, came up to us at practice and said, listen, we have an issue. Tal wasn't registered for the game. So that means the game becomes ineligible. We lose 2 points in the brackets and we need to play the game all over again. So we were kind of at a point that the team I was playing for, we're kind of in the lower bracket. It's getting close to playoff time. So we're all kind of bummed out, but it is what it is. We need to continue forward. The following day, I got a call from their second team asking if I can come play with them. So I was like, of course, this is what I'm here for. I'll play for any team. I don't mind, I'm here to play baseball. So that was actually my first full game that I started in the Netherlands. The game was going on well. I was playing pretty well throughout the whole game. And towards the end, I was batting lefty. I hit a ball down the line, and I've kind of had, it was like a split moment where it's going to be a bang bang play at the base. Whoever's going to get there first is going to be either safe or out. So I had to make a decision to slide into the base, which was pretty much the only way around it. And when I slid, either my cleat got caught in the base or my knee in the ground. Pretty much, I'm not really sure. But I broke my femur. And I remember it was like a champagne pop. I was lying down on the ground. I was telling the base coach next to me, like, listen, I broke my leg. I think you need to call an ambulance. And he was asking, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. I can't move and I can see it. It doesn't look straight. So eventually the ambulance came. It was about 11:30 p.m. They decided to cancel the game afterwards because they didn't really know what to do. They take me into the hospital at 12:30. I called my father back then, like, hey, Dad, I just broke my leg. I'm not really sure what was going on. I'm on medication. And I pretty much hung up the phone. I couldn't really talk. So my dad called a couple people that he knew that I was playing for. And eventually he came on the first flight to the Netherlands in order to be there with me. So at 8 a.m., I was already in surgery. They put a metal rod inside, but I don't even know what it was. I was half awake, honestly, for half the surgery. So I remember parts of it. But after that, I was in the hospital. I was sitting there. I was staying there for about 8 days following the procedure. My father was there with me. I'm like, okay, what do we do now? I'm supposed to fly to play college baseball, which was my dream since I've been a little kid. And it's coming up in 3 months. What should we do? So we really didn't know. We didn't have the answers back then. But, we just said, let's see what happens. We flew back to Israel. We went to the best doctors and best people that specialize in femurs. They all said, like, listen, it's going to take you about 9 months to be able to maybe start practicing. They all said eventually that will probably be fine. They are not sure about my physical baseball capabilities, but they said I will be able to return to normal at the end of the day.
Hold on. I got to ask Bruce something. Bruce, you're in resident physician. How painful is that?
Yeah, that
Bruce?
Is classically, they often say, okay, what is your pain on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being, I don't know, maybe like a feather falls on you, to 10, breaking your femur. So, they might say breaking your femur or something, but that's like the most painful, arguably the most painful bone that you can break. Were you in like absolute agony when that happened?
So when that happened, and pretty much throughout the whole time of the injury, it was beyond pain. So you're aware that you broke it, but it's not like you're screaming or crying or anything because it's beyond pain and you don't really know what to do with it.
I think that's called shock, Tal.
Yeah, pretty much shock, but it wasn't. You feel the pain, but it's too much of a pain. Like it's pretty tough to describe it, but it's not.
And I can't imagine you're in another country, a different culture, a different language is being spoken. You're in a hospital in a foreign country. I mean, I just can't even imagine. And you're in pain.
Yeah,
severe
I
pain.
had no idea what was going on at that point. I was fortunate enough that my father was able to come and be there. So I know he took care of the hospital stuff, and the team.
Your Abba always takes care of things. It seems like he's always there when you need him.
Yes,
I know he was by your side at the Olympics as well.
Yes, for sure. So
Susie, I know you had a question.
Typically, you don't say like, "Oh, how was your day?" Well, besides breaking my femur, nothing really special. So
no, for sure. All the doctors I've been to were like, "Were you in a motorcycle accident?" I was like, "No, I just slid broke my femur."
What base was it that you slid into?
First base, which is a rule of thumb to never slide to first base, but I had to. The situation occurred.
Wow, you went all out. All right, Susie.
So in photography, we deal with a lot of different cultures. We deal especially with a lot of conflict in documentary photographers, and they go into a country not really knowing how they're going to be received. And I'm curious, given the situation of politics, and also just the competitive nature of sports. How did you deal with other cultures, and how did you have resilience through this, given that you weren't dealing with people that were necessarily like ones you grew up with, different culture, different mores?
That's a great question, but I think it comes from me as being Israeli. You kind of grow up to develop that resilience and kind of know when to block that outside influence. But also me personally, I think that's pretty much how my personality is. I don't let external things influence me that much. And I was thinking earlier on just this conversation and in general. And when I was in New York this past week, I was I don't remember where I was going to, but it raised a thought to me that, okay, now you're at a corner. You really don't know which direction you need. Do you need left or right? Or do you prefer asking someone for directions, or do you prefer solving it on your own? So that's when I thought, like, I personally prefer solving it on my own. It's either opening a map, looking online, just pretty much figuring out on my own. And that's pretty much going back to your question is, I really don't let external things influence me, or going back to my question, I don't let other people dictate which direction I'm going to. So when I was playing, I've been fortunate enough to play pretty much all over Europe. I played in a couple of countries in Asia. I played in the States, but being Israeli definitely builds your resilience towards external influences and distractions. But the baseball community itself is very warming. It doesn't really matter what your political views are, which country you come from. At the end of the day, you play baseball, and it's funny, but in baseball you talk in signs. You don't even talk in a language. So there isn't really too much of a language barrier playing. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, or the fact that I'm an Israeli Jew playing in the Netherlands or Czech Republic or Lithuania, Austria, Germany. And once I'm on the field, I just pretty much let myself focus on myself. And that's pretty much what was my internal drive playing in Israel, with pretty much no support either from the association, the government, no fields, no equipment, nothing. So I had to bring myself to the picture and what I can do in order to get myself, the best player I can be, because it doesn't matter if my coaches think one thing, or if I'm able to get this program or to fly play this and this. I'm the one that I need to take care of it, because no one else is going to take care of it. So that's
Tal, this is so similar. We usually have one of our panelists who's usually here every week is Devin Harris, who's an original member of the Jamaican bobsledding team. So if you ever saw the movie Cool Runnings, that was based on Devin and his teammates. And that, as you're telling your story, it really reminds me that it's very much like Devin's story of making it to the Olympics, when you don't have the equipment, you don't really have the support, you're really doing something that no one else has done. You're chartering a whole new path. And it is really, all the odds are against you. And one of the things I asked, because I love the movie Cool Runnings, and I said to Devin, I asked him, I said, are the athletes really that ugly with each other like they were in the movie? They were just nasty to each other. And he said, oh, no, not in the Olympics. In the Olympics, it's a brotherhood, a sisterhood of all the athletes together. It's extremely supportive. And it sounds like Devin's experience is very much mirroring your experience as well.
Yeah, I think it's very similar. And going back to what you just said, so my personal favorite, one of my top favorite baseball games I've ever been a part of was actually in the Olympics, which was our elimination game. It was against the Dominican Republic. The winner advances to pretty much a potential medal game. So the winner advances to the semifinals, which even if you win or lose, you're still going to end up in some type of medal game, either for the gold or for the bronze. So it was a very important game for both teams. And it was pretty much a roller coaster of a game. We were up, then they were up, then we were up. And eventually we got the lead in the ninth inning, but we actually lost in the bottom of the ninth inning on a walk-off fade, which is pretty much don't want to lose in that way. But one of the most memorable moments for me in the Olympics was actually how the Dominican team behaved following. Instead of celebrating their just incredible achievement, taken before the Olympics, they weren't even automatic ticket winner to the Olympics. They won through like a secondary qualifier, and they were the last team to actually make it. So they actually just made an incredible achievement for themselves. But they're, instead of celebrating, they actually came to us. Some of the players know each other and some don't, but they could just feel our pain, and just the sadness that everyone's going through, that we didn't qualify. Not that we had anything against the Dominican Republic. It could have been against anyone, but of course you want to win. So instead of going to celebrate and focusing on their game tomorrow, they actually went to us and stayed with us for probably close to an hour on the field, just talking to us, seeing what's everyone doing with their lives and what the plans are now. So it was a really really cool moment. And usually a lot of the Latin baseball teams are known for playing with emotions, meaning they play with excitement, they root for each other, and that's kind of, they have an internal brotherhood, and they have a certain rivalry against other teams. But it was really not the case playing the Olympics, because pretty much everyone knew that this is something special. It's not just an ordinary baseball tournament. It's the Olympics, and they could just feel how it pretty much looked like they lost the game too, but even though they just won. So it was definitely that brotherhood that you just mentioned that goes on in the Olympics. And in the Olympic itself, you could see, nations cheering for one another when they win medals. There's medal counts going on throughout where each nation lives. And, you see it in the cafeteria when everyone's eating together and asking questions and want to know about each other's country and what's going on and about each other's sports. So it is that brotherhood that everyone is talking about, and it is something special.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Is there any particular way you learn to break the ice with different cultures?
So at the beginning,
catch up.
there's a tradition in the Olympics that you actually trade pins. So
Tal gave me one. I got one.
Yeah. So we have pins, and you just go to other countries and you try to exchange. Some countries I've personally even never heard of, but it was just amazing, the engagement. You could see it's not like you're at the beginning you're shy because you don't know how to approach everyone, because there's also Corona going on. Because if someone tests positive or you're near someone that tested positive, then you pretty much aren't able to compete. So it was pretty like a cautious way of trying to engage with people, but most of the countries were very warming. Everyone wanted to trade pins, regardless if it was an Arab country or European country, a country from South America, North America. It was pretty nice just doing that.
Tal, can you go back to you were talking about your injury, and I believe the last thing you said was that they were giving you this news that they never thought you would play again, and that it would take you about at least 9 months to heal. But we know that you did beat the odds. So how did you do that, and what happened?
So I was injured in late May. I still had to get released from the military. So once I flew back to Israel, about 8 days after my surgery, I was under the IDF physical trainers care, which is, I have to say, one of the best I've ever been, because unfortunately they know how to take care of wounded soldiers. So it was probably the best care I've had. So I was there for about 2 months, and then when I was finally released, both medical and it was pretty much my time of serving to be finished anyways. So they released me, and 10 days later I had to get on that plane to start college, which starts in August. So I still had to fly. I flew on crutches inside the airport. I was still in a wheelchair just to getting to the plane and back. So I flew with my father. It was about 2 weeks before we still had to open a bank account, find an apartment, get a car, pretty much start a new life while still on crutches. And, we really didn't know what to expect. And I'm not American, so just moving to different countries as an international, it's challenging on its own. As being an international student, this is also the first time that I'm starting school in English, which is not what I'm used to in Israel. So it was just pretty much all the challenges together. But once baseball training started, the doctors of the team sent me to the hospital, local hospital, do some x-rays and everything. But then I was, by October 4th, which is my father's birthday, I was actually cleared to start practicing again. So they saw the bone was healing properly. They said, listen, you still can't, run too much or play in a game, but you
Or
can
slide
start
into
practicing.
first base.
Yeah, I don't think I've did that since, but I don't really have an issue with that now. But around October, which is about 4 or 5 months after, I was already clear to practice and do what I
Half
love
the
doing.
time.
Yeah,
Half the time than they originally expected.
which
Oh my
is
goodness.
probably several different doctors that specialize in femurs told me it's going to take around 9 months to get back to the field. So I was lucky enough. The first year I redshirted means you don't play in the games, but you just practice with the team. So I knew I don't need to push myself, try to speed up the recovery. So I was just practicing with the whole team afterwards. So only after a year and a half, I was actually playing in a game and everything. But just the whole process, it was tough. I would never do it again, of course, but it's tough. But that was the challenging times that myself as a kid came up to my mind and saying, okay, you've gone through all the struggles to now just quit. The doctor said you can keep on going. So why not pursue your dreams? And that's what I did eventually. And 4 years later, after moving to the States, I became an Olympian too. So it's
Wild.
been.
Yeah, I wanted to put this in perspective. For folks who may not watch baseball, so the Dominican Republic is like a huge feeder to the Major League Baseball. I mean, you've got so many stars come in. So that's like losing to them in the ninth inning is like saying, "Oh, we lost to the Lakers in overtime." That's huge to be able to get to that point. And plus, you're the catcher. Like anyone who knows baseball is like the catcher is one of the key positions on the entire field. They always talk about strength up the middle, right? The
Correct.
catcher, the outfielder, and the center fielder, and the second base. And you're basically calling the game, right? Because you're the one who's determining, what the pitcher should do, giving signs, etc. So you're actually like a centerpiece for the team as well. That's incredible.
Yeah, and definitely being a part of the Olympic team, we had Major League All-Star players, we had minor league baseball players. We had myself, who was only a college baseball player, playing on the same team. It was very humbling, but it was an opportunity to learn from these from greatness, pretty much. The Olympics has other athletes, and also just looking internally in our team, it was pretty much incredible wherever I was looking at. And as you said, the Dominican national team, I'm playing against players that I grew up watching and been following and seeing how they are. And now I'm all of a sudden playing against them, and some of them are even on my team. So it's been incredible. It's been an experience, a learning, enjoying pretty much everything experience altogether.
One of the people who I interviewed for my book, The Success Factor, is Steve Kerr, who's a 8-time NBA champion and a coach of the Golden State Warriors. And we talked about the makeup of the team, and it really resembles what you were talking about. You have those seasoned players, right? In your case, some of those major league players. And then you have the people in the middle, and then you have the really junior people as well. But he really talked about how you need all those kinds of people, because if you have only top heavy people, that's going to be very unbalanced. But the top people, they can mentor the younger people, and it's the young people who are bringing the energy for the team so that nobody rests on their laurels. And I really think having that mix of the team that's what Steve Kerr says makes his players so great and his team so great. And it sounds like that's exactly what made your team so great as well. And as Bruce gave us that sports update, Bruce, I had no idea this knowledge you have. My goodness. Wow, I have to add that to your bio now.
Well, I mean, baseball is a great sport, and it's impresses all that you've done. So I guess when you're calling when you're in that situation, maybe tell us about how you approach a game as a catcher, because again, you're the centerpiece of the team, and you really have to get a feel for how the pitcher's doing, right? And then you have to understand the batters, and you have to really understand the field. Like, what? Give us a sense of like what you need to do.
So in general, watching baseball, I have to say I'm not a fan. I like playing it. Watching, I do like. I learn a lot from, but watching 3 hours of baseball is too much for me because I just want to be on the field. But once you flip the side and you're actually catching, each pitch is. People say baseball is boring, which I understand. It's a 3-hour game just watching. You're not really knowing what's going behind the scenes. It can be boring. But once you're out there and catching, you're engaged in every pitch and every pitch calling. You're looking at every pitch as a different situation. So I need to take in factor on how my pitcher's health is doing, how his pitching command is doing, with means how if he's throwing strikes, if he's throwing balls, and all his pitches are they working properly. Looking at the batter, looking at his strength, his weaknesses, what he did in the game, looking at his scouting report, look at the game score, look at the positioning of the field. Let's say I want the batter to hit towards the left side or a ground ball. I would aim for the pitcher to throw in a specific location and a specific pitch. So it's pretty much the game within the game. A lot of baseball is, you look back at statistics, but at the end of the day, once you're out there, it's pretty much that's what's happening. It doesn't matter what you read in the scouting report or how your pitcher is feeling. You need to make the best opportunity for yourself to succeed. And that's just bringing all the considerations together into that specific pitch. And that's only one pitch out of around 100, 150 pitches on your team, which is the whole game is around. With the other teams, about 300 pitches. So baseball does take a while, but it's actually the game within the game that's exciting, and I'm happy to be part of and happy to be engaging with.
It sounds to me
this is like more material for the sequel to your book, The Success Factor.
The behind the scenes.
It sounds to me like these critical thinking skills are ones that you can utilize outside of baseball, such as body language and being extra sensitive to what's going on and just all the critical thinking that goes on in your mind. How do you think this might apply to you in 10, 20, 50 years from now?
So as a fun fact, the position that produces the most coaches is actually catchers. So if you look now at major league managers, a lot of them or previous major league managers were back in the day catching, or have a specific role, but it's just because they were able to analyze the current situation and find a solution. That's how I personally take it to my personal life, is rather than asking the guy next to me, which direction do I need to go to, is how do I analyze the situation in order to find the solution and find where I need to go to. So I think that pretty much how it brings together. I don't know if I'll be a manager for a major league team one day in 10, 20 years, but I do see myself in a position where I am able to analyze my success in order to give me the best outcome.
It's so interesting you say that, and Susie, that you asked that question, because Tal, as you were telling us about the game within the game, I kept thinking of, you're doing constant data analysis. That's what you're doing within the game, as you're looking at all these variables and you're analyzing them in real time, probably in double, triple time. So it's really no surprise that you are a business major and that you are going into finance, because that's a lot of data analysis. You're just doing it without a ball.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, really.
Yeah.
Now we need to wrap up, but I don't want to finish before we get to the story of what's it like training for the Olympics that were postponed for a year because of COVID, and you had a scare as well. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah. So I personally think the postponement for the Olympics for us as the Israel national team was actually a positive thing. And why is that? Is because we qualified pretty late in the qualifying 4-year process. So we qualified less than a year of the Olympics, rather than, people know more or less around 2 to 3 years, if I'm not mistaken, that they know around, or they know they're going to compete for the Olympics. So looking 6 months before we even qualify for the Olympics, we weren't even thinking of as an opportunity for us being in the Olympics. So now we qualify for Olympics. It was late September, which gives us around 7-8 months of continuous training after this long summer we had. And it's not only a summer, because we all had a season beforehand, which lasted about a year. So we're about in late September, we qualified. We're continuing training, which at one point you're excited because you have the Olympics coming up, but at one point you're also not trying to do much and know your body, because it could lead to potential injuries. But once Corona started, I was still in my season here. I remember I took a plane on March 16th, flew to Israel, thinking I'm only going to be there for 2 weeks and I'll be able to fly back to, continue everything. And everything in my apartment was like pretty much I left in the weekend. Looking back, I had my towel on the floor and my stuff just like I left for a nice weekend. But 5 months later, with this pandemic still going on, it was pretty a bizarre moment. I'm sure everyone can agree of that. It just takes people out of their uncomfort. But I was actually in Wingate, which is a sports institute in Israel. That's kind of where all the Olympic athletes kind of train together. So we got special permission. That was the only gym open, and it was only if you're Olympic member or potential Olympic member, you could train there. And you had all the capsules, and they need to clean it before, clean it after. You can't touch too much. But
let me just explain, because we didn't have that term here in the United States. A capsule are the people that you're with all the time. It's your bubble, what we call the bubble.
Yeah. So, but I was actually working out in March, or I think a little bit later. I think they kind of postponed it pretty late, around April to May. I was training in the gym, and they had the TV going on, and they said that Australia and Canada pulled out of the Olympics. And we're like, okay, Australia and Canada are two big countries. They're not like sending 2 athletes to the Olympics. They're sending, from all sports. And that's kind of when we noticed stuff weren't going towards our way Olympic wise. I think a day or 2 later, they kind of announced again, when I was at the gym in the Israeli Olympic Center, they announced the Olympics is being postponed. So we're like, okay, what do we do now? We had kind of a week of trying to really think, like, okay, is this just been canceled for the first time since I think it was World War I? Like, what just happened? Like, come on, is this serious? We just qualified for the only baseball Olympics in 20 years, and this is the Olympics that's canceled. So we're like, okay, this isn't really much in our control, in our reach. We just gonna continue. But they quickly announced that it's gonna be just postponed for a year and not canceled. So we actually had that light at the end of the tunnel. So for us, it was actually that moment we needed to in order to catch a break, be with our families or take ourselves an off season. Everyone's pretty much not doing anything. Everyone is in their homes, but it actually gave us a full year of proper physical training, baseball training, mental training, in order to get to the best shape we can in July 2021, which was when the Olympics happened. So that actually year and 2 months, or a year and a month, that gave us an extended time, was very beneficial for us, because we could all, move back to the basics and work on the things that we need to. There's a lot of things that, athletes, they all want to be on the field, they all want to play, but they don't really want to do the small things that you need to. So that actually did give us the time off we all needed, and still mentally prepare that we are playing in the Olympics. So we tried to take it as the best possible way we could. We were still practicing, unsurely knowing the Olympics is going to happen pretty much until the last minute. We weren't really sure. But in our mind, it's going on, and this is what we're holding on to. So we had that year of proper training. Everyone back to their teams and went back to that personal development growth they needed in order to get to the Olympics in the best personal shape, and as well as bring the team together when we needed to. So of course, it's the pandemic brought much uncertainty and struggles, but for us, I personally think it was better off that way, and we're able to recoup and regroup and bring everything that we can to the table and control what we can control, and that's the only thing that matters.
Tal's been listening to everything I say because I always said extreme high achievers control what they can control. Those are the exact words I use. Tal, thank you so much for joining us and really telling us about your story and your journey to the Olympics and all these behind the scenes stories that nobody can ever Google about what it takes to get to the Olympics. I'm really happy that I was that crazy woman on the plane who reached out to you and said, I must talk to you. Now you can see it's in the comments. Tal was actually, part of his story was in 2 articles I wrote, one in Forbes and one in Psychology Today. If you want to read a little bit more about Tal and learn a little bit more about him, all of the contact information for all of our panelists, it's all in the comments. So go check them out. Tal and Susan and Susie and Bruce, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to the Mentor Project for hosting us, and Dr. Debbie Heiser behind the scenes, who always makes us look gorgeous and sound fabulous. Everyone, thank you very much. If you are listening to this on the podcast, which comes out about a week after the show, if you could please leave us a rating and review, that really helps with the algorithm. And please join us next week, because next week we have somebody who is a physician, a scientist, an astronaut, and an Olympic coach. And he's in the Astronaut Hall of Fame. He's done all of that. He's going to be our guest next week. He's one of the extreme high achievers who's in my book. You're going to start meeting a lot of them now. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us. See you next week.